And welcome back to the Dean Obeidallah Show. Right now, very happy to have back on the show Ramy Youssef, a Golden Globe winner, Emmy nominated for his starring and producing of the show on Hulu, Ramy, hit show, also co-creator of the critically acclaimed award-winning show on Netflix, Mo. And he's about to go on tour right now, but he's on strike as our members of the Writers Guild of America. So we got a striking, and I'm a union guy. I'm not in WGA, but SAG-AFTRA. So Ramy, brother, not just a brother as a Muslim, but brother as a union guy. You know, we're sort of this together. How are you? Good to see you.
Good, man. You know, we voted, you know, I'm in a position of being kind of part of all these unions, you know, the DGA and the WGA and SAG. And so, you know, exciting that SAG authorized the strike. And I think, you know, for people who, to zoom out, people who don't kind of understand the situation, it's like we are striking for kind of marginal differences on the ledgers that these large corporations make, especially when you're looking at, you know, companies like Apple and Amazon, where all of this is just a drop in the bucket. I think what people are looking at is the way the industry's changed, the way that people get compensated for work that gets to live within ecosystems forever, right? So people used to work on shows and then they'd make income when those shows get sold again. And now a show is made and it never gets sold because it just stays on Netflix forever. It stays on Amazon forever. And the initial pay is less. And so, you know, the energy it takes to make a show, the creativity, especially when, you know, you're giving it all of your ideas and it takes time to recharge those things. People are just looking for a little more clarity in terms of, you know, having a fair relationship. And we're obviously looking at, the margins getting higher for profit and then, you know, for everyone, but the people who are making the things that people watch. And so it's a good fight to have. You know, people might not fully understand it or might think people are just complaining over nothing, but I think it's actually, you know, an incredibly real and legitimate thing.
Certainly. And, you know, it's interesting reading articles about leading up to the strike. And now the industry has changed so much. The last strike, 2007, 2008. And now you get to this world where you're touching on it. It used to be you would work on a show and it's 24 episodes. You're on a network show or 26 episodes. So obviously it's full time and the compensation is commensurate with this amount of work. Now you have series on Netflix and Hulu and Amazon, 8 episodes, 10 episodes. That's it. So what I really was taken back by is some of these companies want it to be like a freelance profession now, like gig work and very minimum numbers of staff writers on a show. Can you touch on that a little bit and the unfairness of that?
Yeah, again, it's like it starts to feel at a certain point that all the profit is headed in one direction, especially when a lot of these streaming networks are also now opening up the walls to running ads on what they're doing as well.
Right.
So that argument can't even be made anymore, right? So you know, you're making money off commercials that you're running on what we're creating, and then now there's even, you know, the really, I think, a big quintessential issue, which we've been talking about a strike since the end of last year, even longer, you know, but starting to feel like, okay, maybe the negotiations aren't going to reach a place that feel healthy. And then kind of, I think it's a bit divine that around the same exact time that we do actually go on strike, the AI conversation and how it affects everyone, you know, on a global level, with what it's doing economically, jobs it might replace and erase, all of that also comes to a head at the same exact time that we're striking and becomes, you know, a really weird thing because, okay, if AI writes a script, what's it basing it on? You know, it is basing it on every script that's been written before. And so it's like work of people who've worked really hard remixed and then now owned by a company. And again, you know, it's more than cutting the middleman out because it's like you're using the work of people who kind of came before. Now, I don't think that creatively it's going to be able to hold a candle in a real way, but I think what people are afraid of is that, you know, you generate the first script with AI and then you just hire someone like you or I to come in and make it feel more human, but you don't feel like you need to pay them a full script fee, right? And so it's weird because it's like, again, it's there's no residuals, but it's almost like the AI is using residual work to create new work, but no one's getting paid residuals. So in a weird way, you know, the thing that we're fighting for it just hits you twice. You know what I mean? It's like, no residuals financially, but we are going to use creative residuals to put it into a machine to make a new thing. And so then it starts to feel, I mean, this isn't just insulting, it's inhuman.
It is. And, AI, so it might replace writers on its way to replacing humanity, as the guys who invented AI last week, they're like, we're inventing something that we fear will get rid of humanity. I'm like, if I was building a bomb in my apartment that was going to kill people, I'm like, stop building the bomb. Like, you guys control AI. Why don't you stop it from being an existential threat to humanity? But it was really interesting to see in the points WGA raised, AI was a big one. And I was like, wow, that's where we are, that there really is a concern that AI will, because it mimics human behavior. It looks at past human behavior and be able to find patterns and mimic it. So if you give it scripts, I don't know if you've seen a script written by AI, but clearly it's able to do just about anything. It's got to be fact checked and fixed a little bit, but
it's not quite there yet, Dean. But I think what it is like, I think we've all been really in the front row of watching tech grow over the last 30 years. So it can't do it today. But I think when you see, I mean, it can do a varying degree, but when you see how fast it's moving and how fast it's working, it's going to be able to in 3 or 4 years, right? In a way that feels, palpably real. And I think, like, I'm not against it. I think, you know what I mean? I think that, like, to complain about technology or to only look at the negative of technology would negate how much good has come of it. But I think it's like anything with human beings, which is like, what's our etiquette around it? And what is our law around how we're going to use it? And, we can't look at it as, this disaster because it's going to happen no matter what. But I think what we can look at is understanding that there's like a real life consequence here that, could actually, get rid of us in a way. But what if we use this as a moment to actually create real boundaries with technology and learn how to harness it? And I think that's where the government is going to have to step up. And, I've talked to people in Congress who are really aware that this is a bipartisan issue that has to be looked at because it really does affect all of us. And I think in the way that, what's interesting about the fight we're fighting right now, movies in Hollywood are always really symbolic of emotional things that people are going through in their real life. And in a way, this labor union fight in Hollywood is symbolic of the larger fight that every economic sector is going to have, so it doesn't really matter what profession you're in. You're looking at this and you're saying, oh, this is going to affect the way that we do what we do. So in that sense, the Hollywood of it continues to be at least somewhat symbolic for something that's happening everywhere.
Sure. There was a story we covered last week where a lawyer in New York had his brief in a lawsuit generated by AI. But what AI does is it made up case names. It literally made up case names. And the lawyer's going to get sanctioned now by the court because he goes, AI created it. And then I asked AI, are these real cases? And AI said, yes, they're real cases. And he hands it to a judge. And then the judge's law clerks and the other lawyers against him are like, we can't find any of these cases. Where'd you get this? And he admits, I just had AI write it.
Oh my God.
And the case names were like, they look like real names. It was like, it was in an aviation case with someone got hurt on a plane. And they were literally like, Xander versus Delta Airlines. They look like real case names. And you're like, wow, this is really, and we've covered this on the show too. Like the head of Google was on 60 Minutes recently, and they were talking about how AI taught itself Bangladeshi. They never taught it that. And they had Google, they said, are you concerned about this? You don't understand the product you've created. He goes, well, we don't understand the human mind as well. And I'm like, you didn't create the human mind, buddy. You've created a project has an appetite for knowledge, and it's limitless because it's technology.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, these things happen. We've seen Terminator. Like, again, Hollywood is giving us, I'm half kidding, but half not, because Hollywood through science fiction has shown us what the future could be in many, many areas. 2001, go to Space Odyssey 2001 with HAL and Stanley Kubrick, famous film from the 60s, where the computer turns on the humans, and you go through all the way to today. So this is less lethal, but more for industries and for people working in different fields. So I understand it completely. And by the way, the Senate, Chuck Schumer just today said they're having a big conference with the senators trying to bring them up to speed on AI, because the average age of senators, as we know, is like late 60s, early 70s. So, they're still figuring out, the VCRs or maybe Instagram and stuff. So you're right. We need protections from this, and you guys need it. And I think it makes such a great point. It's much bigger than the Writers Guild strike, AI. And it's important for people to understand that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we're just in a position of being, the first active union that, again, there is, I think, something divine about the timing, because this really became, it reached its inflection point of being something, for the public with OpenAI and the way that it's opened up to developers just this spring, just as we're striking. So I think that, not to create grandiosity around ourselves in any way, I just think that it's pretty clear when you look at it. Oh, this is a really interesting inflection point, and we're at a tip here. And what are we going to do? And how can we at least be part of brokering something that feels like a potential framework for others to expand upon, even make it better than whatever it is that we reach. Yeah.
I'm chatting with Ramy Youssef, award-winning actor, show producer, writer, and part of the WGA, the Writers Guild of America. It's on strike right now. So where, I was trying to find any news articles in the last few days about, are they in talks? Is anything going on? I see every day on Instagram images of strikers at the Writers Guild. Like every day it comes up in my feed.
Yeah,
somebody I know. Right. So that's happening all the time. Is there anything that you can share with us? Have you heard? Is there solidarity still among the writers first? And second, are there any talks going on between the studios and the Writers Guild?
I'm not at the level of being someone who's, in those talks. I know that there's a lot of people who are, really smart that have been part of the negotiating committee and who continue to organize the strikes. And so I think the striking is really strong amongst writers. Everyone I'm talking to, everyone feels really steadfast in what we're asking for. And I think that, SAG authorizing the strike is a really, nice kind of wind in our sails situation, because I think, the more that we can be united with other unions is really great. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that part of what we've known is that there's going to be the DGA who have reached the deal. There's going to be SAG and WGA. And so to my understanding, it's just kind of about figuring out now where we're at with SAG and WGA and kind of, getting more clarity from what the studios and the networks are going to realize we need.
I remember the strike in 2007, 2008. I had just left work at SNL, but they went on strike, right? The season ended and the strike went for about 100 days. And you look back and it says it cost the economy of California alone $2 billion.
Yeah.
And I wonder at what point do the studios, the ones you're talking about, Amazon, Apple, the networks, SNL was canceled the rest of the season for the last 3 episodes and late night shows. Is there a point you think they feel pain that makes them say, okay, we got to work on a deal here?
Yeah, I think so. I think there has to be, right? And I think, not that I could even pretend to understand all the economics. I've talked to a few people who certainly understand it a lot more than me, who have basically said, the longer it goes, especially if it goes into September or further into the fall, it'll affect Wall Street, because all of these things eventually become connected in terms of, the way that works. And so, but I can't really pretend to even understand like the intricacies of that dance. I just know it's got to cost something at some point, because, like we wouldn't be having these conversations if it didn't. And I think that, storytelling is just at the, bedrock of our culture.
I just asked AI. It says it's going to cost a lot of money to the industry by the fall, because obviously it will be, because look at the companies are intertwined. Disney, Amazon, a small component is what they make from revenue from Amazon shows, but certainly Apple, Disney, they're smaller components, but some it's bigger components of their revenue stream. Hulu is obviously much bigger. I mean, you've got some that's their primary revenue stream. So just so you could share, like on a practical level. So what happens? You have your show, Ramy, you have Mo. Does everything just stop? Like, do you guys, there's no writing, no talking, no one even like loosely, it just,
I mean, look, we're creative people, right? So it's like, we can kind of just talk about, I don't think anyone is trying to put themselves in a position that when this is over, they've, had their brain off for 3 months, or 4 months or however it lasts, And again, I think it'll last as long as it needs to last. But in terms of, the shows that we have in active production, no, we're not meeting, that's not happening. And I think like, Dean, this for guys like us, I'm going on tour doing stand-up. We're always writing, right? Like we're always doing stuff. But I think that the main thing here is saying, cool, like you don't want to reach certain terms with us. So we're not going to be doing things that feed your business in this moment, right? We're going to just kind of focus on ourselves. And so I think that I kind of had stand-up planned anyway, but it's definitely turned into a situation where, oh, cool, I'm putting everything into stand-up, which is kind of how we started anyway. We all started like, let's just do, not all, but, our group, Dean, where it's just like, yeah, hey, we can get up in front of people. Let's connect with people in real life, which I think as all the tech conversations bubble up to, it's really been nice to just be in a room with fellow sentient breathing humans.
Sure. And look, it's going to make, I'm sure it's going to make its way into your act. I mean, I've joked with the crowd, like, if you don't like my jokes, don't blame me. It was written by AI.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. And I say by AI, I mean, I wrote them. Okay. But the idea is like, it's coming for all of us. And it's, many times in the show, we've talked about it in serious tones with people now about where we're going as a nation. And is it the excitement in a way of the internet being new? Is it going to be like that kind of blossoming industry where it has an impact, really good impact in certain ways? Because it's already part of our lives.
Yeah, of course.
We'll talk about like Gmail generating words for an email. That's AI. It's based on your patterns. So it's already happening. The question is, where does it go? So, I mean, are you up? So there's not even a sense of when this could end. It could be the last one was about 100 days. This could go the same thing, I assume. I mean, it could go 2-3 months.
For sure. I don't think that there's like, I think there's anyone who gives you a month or a day or whatever is just giving you their own personal projection of when they want it to end based probably on a vacation they're going on. Like, I don't think anybody knows. So
And what about like for pitching? Does that even happen now where you're pitching show ideas, or is everything just stopped?
No. There's
nothing.
There's nothing, man.
Yeah, really? I didn't know, because I know you couldn't write, but I didn't know if you can go to pitch to. But when you're on strike and you're WGA, you can't go pitch to a studio that you're an adversarial relationship with at this point.
No.
That doesn't happen. Oh my gosh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
This is, look, it's got to. They held out in 2007, 2008. I remember it. Went for 100 days, and I had just left SNL, and we were doing Axis of Evil at the time, and we had friends who were writers, and they were worried, but they're like, we have to do the good fight because technology was changing them. It had a lot to do with streaming, if I remember correctly. And they were right. They put up a good fight. It was important to do that because statistics show that pay for WGA writers has declined by between 4 and 23% for adjusting for inflation over the last few years.
But it's even more than that too, Dean, which is like the writing experience has radically changed with streaming, right? So it's like writers will work in a room, and a lot of, a big part of the conversations are the length of rooms and mini rooms and paying people less before shows are officially picked up in order to farm ideas from them that, like there are all these shortcuts that are kind of happening. Writers aren't going to set. And so I think what's happening is not just the pay, but the experience is hurting the legacy of kind of building people who can continue to guide the next generation of the industry because they're getting a shorthand experience. And for me, as someone who, has only been a beneficiary of the streaming era, I've learned a lot going out picketing, talking to writers who've been in the industry a lot longer than me and hearing about what their experience used to be. And I already don't have that, what they had, where I say, oh, whoa, like, used to be able to bring this many writers to set, or whoa, you had this much time to do this thing, or all those things were already kind of in a different way of making things. I'm incredibly grateful. I'm not going to say that I've had the short end of the stick, but I also realize that there are a lot of people who and I think for people who have been able to and I've talked about this a bunch with Mo and other people who we've been really lucky to reach certain successes, but it's also like there are a lot of people who don't get the good end of the tougher situation, and that's who a lot of us are striking for. And I've been really impressed with a lot of big names, like a lot of people who are legendary writers, directors that the whole world knows in a really big way. In a lot of the private conversations we're all having are being really like blankly stating, hey, we're doing this for all the members of the guild, you know, people who really depend on this writer's room paycheck to afford rent. To, you know, I think people
Right.
just think once you're in Hollywood, you're, you know,
Yeah.
and I try to tell people, it's like, man, you know, you strike gold when you get a show on the air, right? It's like, it's so hard to get a show on the air. And if you were to scale out many other professions over the course of 10 years, anyone who's a nurse or a doctor or a dental hygienist, you know, like over the course of 10 years, the stability of that job where you can always find an office to work at or always a place to work at, we don't have that kind of stability. So it might look like there are these big sums, or you hear how much someone's getting paid or this or that, but a lot of times an actor is in a lot of movies or a writer writes a lot of shows and people go, we're bored of them, let's get somebody new, right? And then you don't have that. So it's a really fragile kind of experience, you know, and I think people are just really wanting to protect when they do get an opportunity to do something, that at the very least, it's allowing them to have, you know, their quality of life boxes checked, you know, and I think there's a lot of members of the WGA, a lot of members of SAG who, you know, getting this right will actually, you know, it'll affect their lives, their families' lives, their kids' lives. And I think that's what we're all striking for.
Certainly. And it's also part of the legacy. So let's talk, before we wrap up, let's talk about your tour. You're about to go on tour across the country.
Yeah.
And I saw the list of dates and starts and choose. So where are you going? And is there a theme, or is it just going out and having fun? Or is there a theme to the tour?
Going out having fun. I mean, I've been, you know, my last special that I shot was in 2019. And so I have been really busy making, you know, since that time, we've made 2 more seasons of Ramy, we made a season of Mo, and we've been working on an animated show that's coming out next year on Amazon. And so I've been really excited to have this tour because it felt like this opening of, oh, cool, I can kind of get back out and really run stand-up in earnest in the way that I used to before we started making Ramy on Hulu. So it's really just kind of, you know, where I'm at right now in life, and you know, I've been running like an hour and a half of material that I'm really excited about.
Wow.
And figuring out, you know, what's going to be and what would be the next special. And so yeah, it's a bit of like finding it and just getting back out and doing that, and doing a bunch of cities. I've actually never really done a tour like this. Even when I did my first special, you know, I was opening for Mo a lot. I was kind of piecing it a lot of, you know, the pieces together in LA and in New York between writing and you know, because we've been, even though the show came out in 2019, we've been working on it since like 2017, right? So I've been in that kind of thing where I haven't really had that tour moment, that tour window. So in a way, it feels like a bit of a first tour as well, which is really exciting, just to really go out, do these cities. Yeah, so I'm really excited to just meet a lot of people. Yeah.
And if people want to find out the tour dates, is there one website for it, or is it through Ticketmaster?
Honestly, if you Google my name or just go on my Instagram, you know, Ramy, R-A-M-Y, just go on Instagram and I have all the dates up there. And I got a link in the bio that's got the tickets, and, you know, come out.
Check it out, Ramy. And if you're on Instagram, check out Ramy Youssef. Google it. He's coming to your city. He's really funny. I've known him for a long time. Well, congratulations on the success again. But of course, we're going through trying times with the WGA. So stay strong, brother. And I look forward to seeing your tour, clips of your tours on Instagram. I'm sure we'll see that. And hopefully we'll talk when you're in New York next time.
Thanks, man.
Take care, brother. Have a great day.
See you, man.